To say I was mad as hell would be an understatement. I have a son named James. James was a good kid growing up, so him doing this was a complete shock to me. I have a daughter too. Her name is Alex. When my wife passed away nearly 2 years ago from COVID, she already had a will in place. She was immunocompromised due to a prior condition she was diagnosed with a decade before she passed away. She made sure she had a will set just in case anything happened to her. In the said will, she divided her assets between our children James and Alex. James got his share as he was already 21 when she passed away. He'd ostensibly used that money to put a down payment on a condo, and he also bought his mother's car. The will stated that my daughter was to get all of my wife's jewelry. That included a vintage gold ring with a diamond that had light blue sapphires on each side of it. That ring has been passed down for generations in my wife's family. It was originally her grandmother's wedding band. Her husband was a jeweler and had handcrafted the ring for her himself. It was passed down to my wife's mother when her grandmother died, and then to my wife when her mom passed away. The ring, along with all the other jewelry, was to go to my daughter. It was a piece of unmatched craftsmanship, and its worth was almost $5,000 today. The way James has acted was like a knife in the back to me. James has been dating Susan for about a year now. I found out about them only after 3 months into their relationship because he wanted to be sure about her before he introduced her to us. He said she reminded him of his late mother. I don't think so. I am glad that witch didn't become my daughter-in-law. This young woman has had my son wrapped around her finger since the beginning. I don't have a good feeling about Susan, but I won't say anything to James. It's just a hunch after all. She loves jewelry. I don't know which woman doesn't. So Madam wanted to see the family jewels as soon as she heard about them. She had a vague idea about James' great-grandfather being a jeweler, and a lot of it was passed down to James's mom. We have a rule. No one can look at the wooden trunk of jewels. My wife rarely wore a few pieces from the lot, which had attracted a lot of unwanted attention. So she thought it was better if she didn't wear it out much, only on special occasions and around family. So when James excitedly told me that Susan was interested in looking at the jewels and she was like family, I stood my ground. James snuck her into my wife's room one night when I was out with my friends and showed her everything in my absence and without my prior permission. I was angry when he later admitted to me about this, but I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. James came to me a week later and begged for the sapphire-studded ring from his mother's heirloom jewels. Apparently, Susan had fallen in love with it, and so he felt that this would be the best thing to propose to her with. I clearly told him that the ring belongs to his little sister Alex, and he could go and ask her for it. I gave him one fair chance, but only once. That too, just ask, not pressurize her into giving it away. We went to Alex, who declined the request and stated that she preferred it would be with her forever, and she loved that ring very much. I told James to not press the matter any further, but he left, and he was super upset. I thought he'd let it go now, but he came back home a day later and got into a huge fight with his sister for the ring. Alex later called me crying and told me about this. I called him and asked him to leave immediately. He was livid, but he left only to come back the next day in a suit. I was about to leave work when Alex called me that he had assaulted her and had stolen the ring. She had tried to stop him from leaving, but he had simply shoved her aside. He had barged into my wife's room and then left within a few minutes. I got home as soon as I could and checked the jewelry box. The ring was actually gone. I called him and asked him to return it before it was late. He whispered that it was late because he had already proposed to Susan with that same ring. It was on her finger at the moment. That was his problem, and I asked him to get it back or I would file a report. I would even get a lawyer if needed. So what if he is my son? He had broken the law and stolen from his sister and indirectly his deceased mom. I gave him time until the morning to return it. He didn't turn up, but with his shameless fiancée, who wanted to keep the ring in spite of knowing it was stolen, and they tried to guilt-trip us into letting them keep it, but it was fruitless. James begged me not to do this and that she was his mom too, and Alex wouldn't need the ring anyway as it was a traditional wedding band and her boyfriend or fiancé would get his own ring to put on her finger someday. So what? This was something wrong, and we wouldn't let it go in the name of family. Susan pulled out the ring and dumped it in Alex's hand and stomped out like a child whose favorite toy had been snatched away from her. She even called me an evil bastard. James followed Susan, and I think our family was broken completely that day. I didn't, but James tried involving family and friends into this in hopes of support, and he got the exact opposite reaction he had hoped for. Everyone was mad at James for what he had done. It's been a week now, and James has refused to speak to me. I've since had all my wife's jewelry placed in a safety deposit box that only I have access to, and it will remain there until Alex turns 21. It may even stay there if she wants to keep it safe that way. I know what I did was right, but I don't want my son to hate me and the family to hate my son. If anyone has any advice as to how to better meditate this situation without me giving away the ring or spending a lot of money, I'm all ears. Well, Susan has broken up with James, and he is devastated and blaming me for it. I don't recognize the person he has become now. He was a good kid indeed. After I forced them to return the ring, Susan apparently spent days in bed crying and then told James that she didn't want a different ring, no matter how much he told her he'd get her another one made. It seemed she couldn't imagine any other ring on her hand after my wife's ring had stayed on her hand for a couple of hours. I didn't have any contact with them directly, but due to their failed attempt at support, family and friends kept me in the loop about what they were up to now, even though I wasn't asking. A few weeks later, when James had swallowed his pride and Susan was ready to evaluate the option of getting a duplicate ring made, he contacted me. He needed me to come over to the jeweler's store with the ring, as he needed to have a close look at it so it could be copied down to the exact detail. Pictures would not be of much help here. I went there for my son. The moment I took the ring out, Susan's eyes lit up with greed. Now, after examining the ring, the jeweler told us that making a copy of this one would be too expensive for us, and he even showed us modern pieces with similar stone and cut and at a much reasonable price. James was okay with both the ideas when Susan suddenly slapped him hard and called us filthy and cheap and left the store. I asked James why he was with someone like her, and he said he really loved her. She didn't talk to James for a few days after that incident. She then told him that they were done because he couldn't get her the ring that she wanted so badly, and she couldn't imagine having a miser like me as her father-in-law. People were now calling her a gold digger. We changed the locks in the house because honestly we didn't feel safe sitting with all that jewelry in the house, even though it was in a safety box now. I'm even getting cameras installed. James called me and said that I had ruined his relationship by not letting Susan have the ring she had set her heart on. He is requesting for a transfer on his job and selling his condo. He said he will move as far away as possible and doesn't want to do anything with me. His last words were to have fun with my favorite kid. Susan got in trouble with her parents as they were horrified when they heard the complete story from me about how she had acted. They told me she used to be much kinder before, but has recently changed a lot and throws tantrums for the silliest reasons. They are going to ask her to move out soon and stop paying half of her rent like they used to. When James' own best friend from elementary school didn't see things from his side, James cut him off too. In short, James and Susan both hate me to death. I'll start this off by asking people to stop asking me for pictures of the ring. I don't like the idea of it getting copied by total strangers because then it would no longer be unique. The ring is locked away in a bank vault now. I'm thankful for getting cameras installed in the past few weeks. Susan and James will not be getting back together. I'd even met with my lawyer to get my will altered. James is not written off in it, but he has surely lost a lot of things he would have otherwise inherited. I also ran into Susan a couple of days ago at the local shopping mall. She yelled at me that I was a greedy miser. My friend laughed at her and called her a gold digger bitch who just wanted my dead wife's ring. Half the crowd had now turned around to witness the drama. She stormed away after cursing me. For those who felt Susan and James' personality shifts could possibly be due to drugs, I'm not sure, but I don't think that's the case. It was all them. Susan was arrested 2 days ago for attempting to break into my house. The cameras caught her and her car. She had sneaked into my backyard and had tried to open my back door with an axe. She tripped the alarm and ran off but left a lot of worthy proof against her. The police arrived and went to her apartment to arrest her for trespassing. She didn't cooperate there either. Her parents called me to apologize and even filled me in with some more details. They said her drug test had come clean at the police station. Susan was found to be mentally unstable. I guess she needs major mental health treatment, and her parents have planned to move her far out of town once the legalities of our case are dealt with. I do feel a bit sorry for her now. James didn't contact me at all even after Susan's break, an attempt and news of her deteriorating mental health was out. One of his colleagues told me that he was still very angry and believes that the ring would have been a small price to pay for his happiness. Once he found out about Susan, he blamed her for everything. I guess all he can do is blame. He needs to accept the fault on his own actions before we can think of reconciliation. James sold his condo. For how much I don't know, but he probably made a profit flipping it. Last Saturday, he came home and packed whatever he could fit in his car and left. The gossip train won't leave this guy alone, I guess. He keeps getting in trouble with people in town over nothing. I wanted to salvage the family reputation and offered to reconcile for his own good, but he told me off. I later found out from mutual friends that Susan's parents are loaded. James was with her all this while just because of that, which means my son is a gold digger too. James had wanted to keep that ring because Susan is high maintenance obviously, and she would be impressed with his proposal and say yes. Turns out she had said yes because of it and also started dating him in the first place because he had his own condo. James wanted to marry into wealth, and a lot of his past behavior explains this theory. James didn't even love Susan that much, and it was all about looks, money, and greed after all. So in the end, it was like a two-way gold digger situation with James hoping to make bank by marrying her and her hoping to get married so she could get back into her parents' pockets. Her parents would accept her back into their house if she had successfully kept that job and her relationship with James. They kicked her out originally and made her pay half of the rent so she could get a taste of hard-earned money and real-life struggles. She had always had it easy and had turned into an unmanageable brat. I couldn't agree anymore. I'm so glad this witch didn't marry my son, or I would be crying until the end of my days here. I think I'm going to need another day of retro gaming on my PC and some chilled beers. I just need a mental break. I was already dealing with the loss of my wife, and now I lost my son too. It's more of his loss than mine, but it still feels bad. I am beyond seriously hoping this is the last update I have to post. I just want to be done with this situation. I'm going to be having Christmas for the first time ever without James in almost 2 decades, and it's just me and Alex now. My wife's extended family are the best people, and we will be seeing them on Christmas hopefully.